Hey, everyone. Big news show again today. All our interviews just getting pushed to the end of the week because the news just keeps on coming. First, Jason chimes in with a little update on what happened with the All In podcast and why it appeared that there were ads on top of that feed. It is apparently a little bit of a hijacking situation, so we'll explain all the mechanics of that. He thanks the community for helping to solve the issue.
And Google released their Q4 results and the full earnings for 2021. It's absolutely bonkers. It's absolutely nuts. And Molly and I debate, is this actually the best business ever? And we deep dive and double click on the search revenue, the YouTube revenue. And of course, we're going to talk about what we teased yesterday, which is I'm going to tell the story of the great iPad troll of 2010. Molly remembers it for when she was covering gadgets as well. It's going to be a great show.
Stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Vanta. Compliance and security shouldn't be a deal breaker for startups to win new business. Vanta makes it easy for companies to get a SOC 2 report fast. Twist listeners can get $1,000 off for a limited time at vanta.com/twist. 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer. Now you can add the Pod Pro cover to any mattress. Go to 8sleep.com/twist to check out the Pod Pro cover and get $150 off at checkout. And Gun.io, the simplest way for anyone to hire world-class developers expertly vetted for you by senior engineers. Get $250 off your first hire at gun.io/twist.
All right, everybody. In our first story today, just a little internal housekeeping. A bunch of you started DMing me that, hey, what's the story with All In having ads? As some of you know, All In famously, because Chamath Bandit has no ads. And the reason you're hearing me flustered right now is that would have been $8 million in ads a year for that show. Maybe 5, 6, 7, 8. Of which I would have gotten 25%. And now I'm not saying I need $1 million a year, but I'm not saying I would have turned it down either. And inside baseball, Molly, I said to the team, hey, let me sell 3 ads. I'll read them.
Mm-hmm.
No work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the dictator said to me?
Still no.
He said, we don't need the money.
You know, if he ever bows out and you need someone to come in and take that $1 million a year, I just want to know I care for you.
Yes.
And I'm here for you.
I care about you too, Molly. And I care about $1 million. I was like, he's like, and Chamath's like, do we need the money? And Sachs is like, we don't need the money. And then me and Freeberg were like,
and you're like,
So like the 2 guys with jets were like, we don't need the money. And then the 2 guys who were flying commercial were like,
And, you know, look, we all know need is relative, but still.
I was like, $1 million, $6,000 an hour for a private jet, sweet card, taxes,
it's very
100
dangerous.
hours on a
I know I'm your mom.
jet.
It's so dangerous. But that's why it was such a shock to get these tweets that were like, hey, you guys take ads now? And Jason's like, blah.
What? So
I'm not closer to my private jet, so no.
Exactly. And I'm like literally like booking my JetBlue Mint. Although I have to say, Mint is, I don't know if you've taken JetBlue Mint. Oh,
don't do private jet. It's so dangerous. So dangerous. I was just reading about
I was like, please keep the moneymaker going. Do not die, J-Cal. No skiing over 40 miles an hour. No private jets.
I literally am such a mom. I don't know when I turned into my actual grandma Pat right now, but I'm like, I hope you're being safe out there. Private jets are super dangerous. I just read about Payne Stewart and that horrible plane crash in 1999. Anyway, I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, Payne Stewart, they all fell asleep on the plane, right? They lost oxygen and it just flew for 3 hours.
Popsicles and then because they lost oxygen, and then the plane just flew around until it crashed in South Dakota.
Yeah. So
anyway,
that does not happen on private jets. Are actually safer than if they're like the certain class I'm talking about. Helicopters are the ones I will not get on. I took 2 helicopter flights in my life. Once I was on the Sony private one when I was in IT, I flew on the Sony private helicopter. And then another time when I was in Kauai on my honeymoon, we did like a no-door, crazy, see the Nepali coast? Nepali coast with no doors. And the guy is literally, I kid you not, I'm not saying he looked like a Vietnam vet. He was a Vietnam vet because he told me. And he was wearing just a leather vest, Molly. Nothing underneath it. And the side of his helicopter, this is when I knew I had made a mistake.
You're like, I'm going to die.
The side of his helicopter has like an insignia that is also the same as on his vest, which has multiple insignias. And it has a skull with a sword through it and a snake coming out of the eye. I know this because I was kind of like, what's that? Why is there a sword going through the skull's brain and the snake coming out of its eyes? Oh, yeah, when we were Nam, we all had these things. We would draw them. There are no doors. And we put the seatbelts on, and it's frayed. The seatbelts are kind of frayed.
Mm-hmm.
And we get up there. We're the only two people in the thing. And he's like showing my wife the Nepali coast. He's like, oh, J-Cal, let me show you. And he then, tilts the helicopter like this and then just spins it around. And he's like, oh, Jay, you can take a look now too. And he's going back and forth. And I feel myself, my wife, his weight is on me. She shouldn't weigh that much, and I'm hanging out, looking at the pressure on the seatbelt and the 3,000 feet below me. I get back. Somebody's like, Jake, by the way, huge mistake. This is the most dangerous thing you ever do. You know about all the crashes. I'm like, no, I looked at the safety record, this perfect safety record. I actually looked it up. He goes, oh, in Hawaii, these things crash so often. They just shut the company down. They start a new company and they have 0 crashes.
Oh my God.
And all the pilots and planes that are left or helicopters that are left over move over to the next thing. So if you look up helicopter crashes in Kauai, it is bonkers the number of people who have crashed. 2 of them crashed into each other one time. Because if you've ever been to like Hanalei Bay or these places, you can see the helicopters going by every half hour, of people going up to take these tours. Anyway, don't do it. Too dangerous.
I've only been in a helicopter once, but I jumped out of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that on assignment or?
Yeah, it was for work. It was for an episode of Always On, the show I used to do at CNET, where we were testing. Because, remember that when the HTC One came out, there was that commercial where they were like doing a photo shoot in midair. It was like skydiving. And my crazy friend Sarah was like, hey, I know some guys from GoPro who are on their stunt team. No, Sarah Harbin.
Oh, okay.
Legendary producer Sarah Harbin.
Yeah.
She was like, I know I'm friends with the guys who are on the GoPro stunt team, and I think it would be awesome if we just tried to recreate this. And so then we were like, let's recreate it where we compare the in-air performance of the HTC One and the iPhone. So we did this like freaking bonkers skydiving trip, but then
out
the
of
GoPro.
A helicopter.
Well, that was the GoPro influence. Is that those guys are so insane? Wow. They're like, yeah, we'll organize it all. Like, we prefer to jump out of a helicopter because like the sensation of free fall is so intense, which basically means like. Because you're just at a standstill and you leap into the air, and then I almost threw up. But it was a cool video. I'll find it on YouTube and send it to you guys.
So here's what happened with the all-in feed. Back to
right.
It turns out that people will take your feed and resubmit it. And I guess this was done with a company called Spreaker. And this guy explains it here if we blow it up. I guess some clever person republished our feed to something called Spreaker. I've never heard of it before, but I guess they're like an anchor competitor. I guess they don't have safeguards in place at Spreaker. No criticism, but how dare you? And this guy explains it technically, but basically they resubmitted the feed and then inserted ads into it. And then I guess Google fell for it.
That's what's so amazing. Although we'll get to that in a sec.
And this guy explains the whole thing. And there's something happening with podcasting standards, which all these companies seem to want to break, but there is a standard for locking these.
That's the one, yeah.
So Libsyn, which is like one of the OGs in this space, I guess has enabled locking recently. So we have to set our pods to lock them so that other people can't then, after we put them out, do that. So anyway, it was like a pretty clever thing. And I thank you to the audience who points these things out. But this is one of the problems that people take other people's content and then put ads around it. So I hate this kind of like hijacking of stuff. There was some other pod clips kind of company that I had to send a cease and desist to. These people were like, hey, we're promoting your show. And I was like, no, you're taking every episode of This Week in Startups, Tim Ferriss's podcast, and mine. You're programmatically or automating, actually, clipping it into 25 clips of 4 minutes each or whatever, 3 minutes each, putting a title on each one with some people in Manila who are like, obviously, because you can tell this is not English as a first language, like just bastardizing the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then SEOing them and beating us at SEO. And I contacted him like, why are you bullying a startup? And I'm like,
that's what they said. Why are you bullying a startup?
I was like, okay, I get it. Like, good, not well played. But did you ask our permission before taking everything? He's like, we're promoting to you. And I'm like, are you? Because there's no links back to us.
Right.
and you did the whole show. I was like, how about you can do one clip per episode and you put with permission and you link back. And they're like, we don't have the screen real estate to do that. And I was like, okay, now I know that you
okay,
guys
well then
just
cease
horrible.
And also desist. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So literally they wouldn't take it down. I was talking to other high profile podcasters and I was like, wait a second, isn't there something you can do? And it was like, oh yeah, there's something called like a DMCA. And I was like, wait a second. So I just like, can somebody send a DMCA to, who's their provider? And then somebody on my team was like, oh, their provider is this person. I was like, so just send a DMCA. We send the DMCA. Oh, suddenly all the clips get taken down.
Yeah. It's like, it didn't have to be that way, man.
Be fair. Fair use is being fair. So anyway,
I mean, yeah, totally.
I don't mind people taking, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I'm always flattered if somebody takes one of our clips and edits it, as long as they do it in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they try to misconstrue something like they did with Chamath and they're like, okay, let's take 20 seconds of a 40-minute discussion with no context. Maybe I'm not as cool with it, but like people do some very creative stuff with our clips on TikTok and other places. And
for sure. I think our biggest presence on TikTok right now is a fan account, basically.
Fan account's doing better than we're doing. All right, listen, when you're a founder, it's totally fun to trade war stories with other founders. And recently, Balloon CEO Amanda Greenberg, one of my awesome portfolio companies, told me how Vanta's SOC 2 solution helped her save an important deal in the final hours. I kid you not. Well, Balloon, they sell SaaS productivity and collaboration software. That's why I invested in it. And they needed 10 documents in place within 48 hours in order to close a deal. Well, Vanta saved the day by supplying customizable templates and helping them through the process to close. So if you don't have your SOC 2 tight, you're not going to be able to close those major customers. That's why Vanta's compliance software makes it so easy to get and renew your SOC 2. They continually test against technical and non-technical SOC 2 requirements, and they partner with over 24 audit firms who have been trained to file SOC 2 reports directly within Vanta. On average, Vanta customers are SOC 2 compliant in just 2 to 4 weeks. Compare that to 3 to 5 months without Vanta. And guess what? Vanta's going to give you $1,000 off your SOC 2 just because you listen to This Week in Startup. So here's how you get the $1,000 off. You go to vanta.com/twist, vanta.com/TWIST. That's vanta.com/twist for $1,000 off. Thanks, Vanta.
What I was going to say is I just think there's become this very interesting there's like a culture of no credit now on the internet. When you look at there are these incredibly and I mean this with love. My son and I are obsessed with Daily Dose of Internet on YouTube, which is really just a guy who takes clips from other people, puts them in order, creates a very, clever editing, creates a nice montage, but none of it is original content. I mean, he's literally like, here's a cat that likes to get its fat belly scratched. And then you watch it and then you laugh. And
okay, I'm looking at it now.
It's delightful. And none of it is his own content.
Daily Dose of Internet, 13 million subscribers.
I mean, this kid's like making bank, and he's great. I am not trying to call in an airstrike on this kid. Like, he is fantastic, and he's probably making a ton of money. But just the idea of well,
here's what I'll say:
aggregating and memes are fundamentally lacking in IP. Like the whole conversation about IP and who owns what is really shifted.
To me seem like no big deal because memes are.
But you're not a professional photographer either who makes money off of a photo that gets recreated 10,000 times. And
yeah, if it was a meme, you took somebody's photo and then did a derivative work on it and you were not trying to commercialize it and you weren't confusing the users, that would be fair use, right? And so the fair use test is kind of like 4 parts and it's made so you have to interpret it. So are the users confused? Are you impinging on the person's ability to do commerce in the world? Are you creating a derivative work or doing some sort of commentary? And so in the case of this Daily Dose, I'm looking at it. He links to all the sources in the description.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That's a good sign because he probably sends some traffic.
Literally all I'm trying to say is I think that the Overton window for taking content has shifted enough that I think there probably is a sense from the people who are taking those clips and monetizing them. They're just what? This is what you do now.
Yeah. And then here's the thing. The frequency at which Daily Dose of Internet is doing it, if they're doing it every day and it's becoming a business and they're putting ads on it, that changes things. So if there were no ads on this and he was linking to them, it would feel kind of fair, but he would still be impeding on their ability to do commerce because if you saw that viral clip there, that person's ability to sell it through Storyful, which is a company, I think, that sells viral clips, would go down. So if only 10,000 people saw his show every day or their show every day, I think you said it's a he, if only 10,000 people saw it, then you'd be like, okay, well, there's not that much damage, whatever. But if you're going to get 10 million people to see it, and you're doing it every day, and it's monetized, he should be getting permission in advance.
Yeah. But nobody on the internet is doing that now. That's what I'm saying. It's all like
the news channels do because they get sued.
Of derivative works.
Yeah, but if you were CNET to do it,
we would get permission. Exactly.
ABC,
and it would be
you would get permission.
Thing. Yeah.
So everybody, you see this. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but somebody is like, "Oh my God, my plane crash landed," and then you look at their replies, and it's like, "Hi, I'm from CBS, Arizona. Can we use this clip? DM me. Hey, I'm from this." And then there's one. "Hi, I'm from Storyful. Would you like to monetize this clip? Please DM me." Mm-hmm. And so now there is like a little bit of a standard. If you have a viral clip, there's like a company that will get you $100 every time somebody uses it.
Yeah.
But long story short, be fair, I guess, is like the concept of fair use that I go by.
Yeah.
And we use people's clips here, but if you're doing commentary, you're protected. And it's and also the percentage of the original work is another issue.
Give credit.
Give credit.
Be fair and give credit.
Right. When we did Kara Swisher interviewing Lena Khan, we're like, oh, here's Kara Swisher and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Great get. On CNBC. Yeah. Here's 60 seconds. We'll see you on the other side. That is actually the definition of fair use. The audience isn't confused of where it
100%.
came from.
Yeah.
And it's commentary. Commentary is protected. You don't need permission if you're doing commentary. So you could take the Book of Boba Fett last night, which was absolutely amazing.
I haven't watched it yet. Don't tell me.
There's only 7 spoilers. It's literally the most spoiler-filled episode ever. The number
people were losing it on the internet last night. I was like,
number of cameos in last night's episode is greater than all cameos in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett to date in 3 seasons or 2.7 seasons.
Oh my God.
If you're a Clone Wars fan, did you watch Clone Wars by chance?
Some of it, yeah.
Series? Yeah.
Some of it. Uh-huh.
So I watched that with my daughters because they got into Star Wars and they love Ahsoka. She's like the great female Jedi now. And she's like such an amazing character. It's like literally top 3 Jedi for me. And
so spoiler. So she's back.
Well, anyway, she's been in the series.
She's in the Mandalorian.
She's in the Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. And she may or may not make a cameo. But anyway, there's so many of these Clone Wars cameos in last night's episode that I literally was on Twitter trending topics at 1:05 after I watched it, clicking on every one of the cameos. This guy, Dave Filoni.
I don't know how you do it, man. I was literally in bed at 9:02.
Yeah, I sleep 6 hours a night. It's like when I get to 7, I'm just like waking up looking at the ceiling. So I get to bed at 1 a.m. Usually I get up at 8, 6:30 to 8 window. Usually listen to a podcast or something in bed, try to like rest my body. But when I'm skiing now, I actually do get an extra hour of sleep.
Oh yeah, because you're super poopered. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm I'm a sleep achiever. Okay, let's talk about Google.
Let's go to our first story.
We are just our second story over the place today.
You can leave all that in, by the way. I think
we're so excited to hang out is the thing. We're just excited to hang out.
With all of you, too. Oh, and by the way, Danny Sullivan is now working at Google. He came to my rescue and immediately explained what happened. And so did those people at Spreaker or whatever the heck it's called. And everybody was like very nice about it. And so thank you to everybody for helping figure out the mystery.
Excellent. So yes, Google, as you can see, is so valuable to companies that it is worth stealing a little bit of content and sneaking some ads in because they're killing it. Google reported earnings yesterday. The results were banana pants, like just utterly bonkers. We will get into those utterly bonkers results in a minute. But the other news about Google is that they also announced a 20-to-1 stock split, causing their stock to shoot up around 8% by midday Wednesday. All right. Do we want some bullets here before we dig into analysis?
I think we need to know the numbers and then we can start doing that. Yeah.
All right. Google grew revenue 41% year over year from 2020 to 2021 to 257.
41%.
41%. This is not a hyper-growth startup. This is Google that a lot of people were saying, oh, their business is going to slow down. There's too much ad competition from Facebook. Like I remember a year or a year and a half ago, people saying that Google might be on more of a, growth stock trajectory, not a like 41% year over year.
Growth stock is like over 20, 30%, like a value stock. Maybe.
I'm sorry, value stock trajectory.
Like maybe going under 20% or under 10%, like Walmart or something. I don't know.
Sorry, yes. They would be like in blue chip territory, not in hypergrowth territory. Yes.
So that's when you think about this, like we'll be meeting with startups and you're like, hey, how much did you grow year over year? And they're like, oh, we grew 50%. It's like, oh, you were $500K last year and now you're $750, like $1,000. This is 41%
41%.
And
the dollars, by the way, $250 billion in revenue in 2021.
$257 billion. Now, if they make $1 a click, there's a lot of clicks.
Clicks.
It's 257 billion clicks.
I
think they make less than $1 a click overall. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer. And according to 8 Sleep, over 30% of Americans struggle with their sleep, and temperature is one of the main reasons. And this is why, when I got an 8 Sleep, all of a sudden, I was getting better sleep and making better decisions and had better energy the next day because I could make it nice and crisp and cool when it was a hot night out, or if it was really cold out, I could make it nice and toasty warm. And 8 Sleep is offering a new product that's called the Pod Pro Cover. So if you've already got a mattress you're in love with, you don't need to throw it away. Now you can just buy the cover and still experience the magic of 8 Sleep. The Pod Pro Cover is the most advanced solution on the market for thermoregulation. It pairs dynamic cooling and heating with biometric tracking, so you can add the cover to any mattress and the temperature of the cover will adjust to each side of the bed based upon your sleep stages, your biometrics, and the bedroom temperature. And it reacts intelligently to create the optimal sleeping environment. The result? Well, 8 Sleep users fell asleep up to 32% faster, and it reduced sleep interruptions by up to 40%. And basically, you're going to get a restful sleep overall. And so here's your call to action. Now you can add the Pod Pro Cover to any mattress. Go to 8sleep.com/twist to check out the Pod Pro Cover and save $150 off at checkout. 8sleep.com/twist.
I kind of want to skip ahead to where all that revenue is coming from. We're going to have to dig down in there and break it down a little bit.
Let's go right there. That's a good editorial.
Yeah, and then we can come back to the back of the envelope math. But so crazy.
We'll boat it later.
By comparison, Walmart's last 12 months of revenue was $570 billion, or 4% of growth. All right, let's dig into where is our specific result. YouTube had another blowout quarter. So net income for Google was $76 billion, up 2020 in 2021, up 90% year over year.
Wait.
Standouts.
Wait, what was up 90%?
Net income.
Net income. Okay, got it. Okay.
Cash YouTube, in the back. Blowout quarter. Profits up 90%. Profits up 90%.
Bonkers.
Who can say that? YouTube, $8.6 billion of ad revenue in Q4. That is a cool $900 million more than what Netflix did. And that is not even counting YouTube Red or YouTube Premium subscriptions. That's just plain old revenue growth.
I would love to know that number. What is YouTube Red's, YouTube Premiums?
Yeah.
Do they have $1 million? Do they have $5 million? Do they have 10? I pay for it. Do you pay for it?
No. We've been
pretty game changing.
Debating in our household whether we need to, because I'm like, I think we should pay for this. And my son, who sometimes is a 40-year-old man, is like, I don't know if we watch it that much.
I have a family plan, and
okay.
I'm paying for 2 different accounts, and I'm going to move to the family plan, I think, and try to get that set up.
But there it is.
When you take the ads out, it changes the YouTube experience. Like, I have YouTube up all day because it does seem like a lot of the mainstream media people who said, we're not going to put our content on there and build YouTube have now acquiesced. So, SNL, you can basically watch the entire episode on YouTube. And they were the ones who sued for, remember, Lazy Sunday, whatever. And I think they sued. There's somebody fact check me if I'm wrong.
Or DMCA'd it at minimum. Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
Now, like every ESPN clip, like I never watch ESPN except for the 5 times a day they talk about the Knicks. And I watch those 5 clips.
Yeah.
And they clip them now. And then Bill Simmons, I saw, I listened to his podcast, but now when he talks about a specific team and I DM'd him about it, I was like, this is really great. He's clipping. So Spotify's content is clipping their best moments and putting them onto YouTube to SEO them. So I think something has changed where people are just throwing up the white flag and saying, we have to be on YouTube where we're not culturally relevant.
Mm-hmm. YouTube must have also figured out a rev share here. I mean, I think that, because it sort of stopped being a copyright conversation, thank God, and became a conversation about how does everybody make money. And I don't know if YouTube...
55%.
Right. So if they're giving them 55%, they decided that's a nice little revenue stream, turns out. There's enough traffic. We'll do it.
I think what these... like ESPNs of the worlds or even new content like, The Ringer, I think what they realized was we're not going to be culturally relevant. The 55% is a nice, little piece of change. So we're going to have to be there. And, maybe not all of our content, but we have to be there. And I think like this is the thing with Joe Rogan, back to Joe Rogan, or listening to Joe Rogan, like he owned YouTube. And now I never see Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand what's going on there.
It's the Spotify deal's exclusive.
Yeah, but Spotify's letting the Ringer do stuff. So I don't know if Spotify has a philosophy.
Nick in real time is literally correcting us this is amazing.
He
Nick,
puts
you
some
are a
content
beast.
on there? Not all
Rogan
of it,
still
though.
puts content on YouTube, but maybe not all. Maybe it's like his Instagram. His episodes do?
Really?
Oh, I
Does he
thought it was
still do
I thought the
JRE
Spotify
clips?
deal was exclusive.
I don't think he puts the whole show up, Nick.
That was like their whole deal.
Somebody fact check us, but I'm looking at also the JRE clips. If you go, there was this is the official Joe Rogan Experience Clips channel, which is youtube.com/JRE clips. We started doing one of these, and I'm looking at the videos, and by uploads, he has not done one in a year.
Yeah.
So he's no longer doing JRE clips.
That's the whole deal with the Spotify deals, which, not to reopen that conversation, makes it so different from any other platform conversation, is that it's exclusive, but also that, like, in a lot of ways, it's reducing. There was that big story about Gimlet and how what they were finding is that their traffic was just like subscriptions are way down. Traffic overall is down because exclusives. I mean, this really relates to this YouTube conversation overall, right? Exclusivity reduces audience. And so ESPN and Saturday Night Live was like all of these smarter media companies who were like, oh crap, literally everyone is on YouTube, realized that trying to keep it this like weird little closed garden was just going to mean fewer eyeballs. And you could argue that in today's economy, you can't afford fewer eyeballs.
Here's what Joe Rogan's doing.
Yeah.
He's no longer doing the JRE Clips channel. What he did is he moved clips from JRE Clips, new clips, to Powerful JRE. That's his other channel. He's very powerful. If you didn't know. I'm changing my Twitter handle.
Like, I am biting my tongue so
I am changing I think it's actually an affirmation for him. And I think it's cool. Like, I'm changing mine to I'm changing my Twitter handle today to Billionaire JCap. Just so we can get there.
You don't need to do that.
You want to know one of the worst parts of my life? Is people dunking on me constantly saying, Billionaire Jason Calacanis says that. And then I open up my accounts and I'm like, nope, not yet. So I'm hated like a billionaire without
even the zeros.
Without even being there, without even the zeros.
That's just wrong. That's just wrong, my friend. All right, let's keep going through the numbers.
Let's keep going. So anyway, if you look at
there's YouTube, obviously, juggernaut.
Can I just make one note?
Oh, of course,
He's doing 3 clips per episode. So for example, he just had Jordan Peterson on, and he was talking about men and boys being, if you're a boy and a man, you got the short end of the stick today. Anyway, that's my Jordan Peterson. I'm more sharpening my Jordan Peterson.
Oh my God.
Jordan, that's just it, Joe.
Oh.
I mean, women don't do hard labor, Molly.
It's just an intellectual exploration of everyone else's inferiority. That's all it is. We're just asking questions about why everybody else is so inferior.
Women watching Joe Rogan is just like super eye roll territory, isn't it? Like, you're just like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan.
Why do you need such a big truck? Anyway, let's continue with our deep dive into all the places that Google is making all the money. So that sounded very impressive, right? That YouTube, $8.6 billion of ad revenue in Q4.
It's $35 billion a year.
Yeah. So
that's a lot of money. How much do they give to creators, though? Do they give 55% of all of that or maybe less? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Let's do that breakdown. But so for those who have had questions about the search business, you could probably put those away also. Search, the core business, $43 billion in revenue in Q4, 35% year over year growth. So as a hyper growth, situation, maybe not quite as impressive and still growth that anybody would die for. Yeah. And then that cloud business keeps growing, $5.5 billion in revenue in Q4, 45% year over year growth, which gets us to this question in our notes. Is Google the greatest business ever?
Are they the best hash printing machine? Science guy Friedberg, who I think is your favorite bestie. I'm not sure, taking me out of it. I think he's your favorite.
I can't pick a favorite child.
I think he's your favorite bestie. Hiring software engineers can take a long time. It can take months in some cases, but Gun.io is going to change that for you right now. They're a developer hiring platform. That's what they specialize in. And here's what makes them different. Their candidates are expertly vetted and matched to you by a team of senior engineers, not by an algorithm, not by a recruiter. No, Gun.io developers have 8+ years of experience building products like yours, like mine, and they're used to working directly with founders and executive teams. They know what it's like to work at a startup. So Gun.io can get you a candidate in as quickly as 48 hours. And the average time to hire is only 2 weeks. Most people take a little more time, right? 90% of the candidates are US based, and they have a network of vetted international candidates as well if you're looking to hire from other markets or different time zones. There are 2 ways to use Gun.io. One is you can work with a freelancer and enjoy Gun.io's ongoing support services. They'll handle the billing and swap out talent for free at any time. Or you can hire a remote developer directly from the Gun.io network for half of a typical recruiter's fees. I'm not kidding. Gun.io is the easiest way for startups to find and hire world-class developers. So get $250 off your first hire at gun.io/twist. Give it a shot, report back, tell me how it went. Gun.io/twist. Anyway, he says that all the time. It's the best business because here, let's look at this. $250 billion is a lot of money. And at this growth rate, which is 40% year over year, in 5 years, or no, in 2026, they're going to basically be $1 trillion revenue company. I don't know many businesses that are anywhere near $1 trillion. Like Walmart does $570 billion. But remember, they're selling goods and services. It's not software or a marketplace, you know? Yeah. What is their margin? Like their margin is like, I'm thinking single digits, whereas Google's is, you know, incredible.
Right.
So, you know, you're going to, for somebody like Walmart or even Apple, which is tremendous, like they have great margins, obviously for a hardware company.
That's what I was
trying to... selling phones and hardware. There's still a hard cost to make that in China and ship it here.
Totally. Like that's the only comp I can even think of in terms of margins. And that's just because they charge so freaking much. Like I can't even, maybe Salesforce is comparable in terms of margin, but not revenue.
Margin, sure. But, you know, then you're just, what does Google do with all this money? It's like Google is going to have so much money.
Yeah.
You know, they doubled their profits. So if you're going to be throwing off that much cash flow and you're not allowed to buy things, are they going to start doing a dividend? Because you can't hire more people. You can't possibly pay people more money than they get paid at Google.
Right.
So that's my question is, if we're not going to let them buy stuff, like what would they, if you were there, right? And you were on the board, Molly, and we were having a discussion. And they said, listen, we need to spend $10 billion on something, not buying it. We have to actually spend it. It's kind of like Brewster's Millions, if you remember that. Like, how do you spend $10 billion on something? Like life extension is one of the other bets.
I have an idea. It's kind of a passion project of mine.
Oh, what's that?
Climate?
Climate?
You know what could use $10 billion? I mean,
Solar?
They have X, right? They have the other bets category. Yeah. And this is so interesting because I talked to X, I guess like almost 3 years ago now, maybe 4, when I did this series on like, what is Silicon Valley doing to save the planet?
Yeah.
And what was so interesting about X is that it had started as the moonshot factory, but in recent years has gotten super focused on returns and being profitable. And so they've killed a lot of cool businesses. And I can't even remember what I'm allowed to talk about, but there was one that was like,
Loon,
oh my God.
Right. Which was like the blimps that were going to give, the Loon were like permanent blimps or airplanes that were going to give internet access, I think low Earth orbit stuff. Right. Yeah. So there were a lot of things they were playing with over there.
There were way cooler projects that were like, oh, this will save the world, right? This would revolutionize transportation. This would get rid of, I don't know, gasoline. And they killed them because they couldn't figure out a business model. So great, fine. If you need to make money, that's the right call. But if you are now Google, if you're Google now, and all of these industries, right? If somebody needs to figure out direct carbon capture and storage, X now, if I could sit on the board, I would say, you know what? Take the reins off X. Don't ask those businesses to make money. Just go ahead and change the world.
I mean, I always thought fiber was a really good one. And I actually talked to Larry Page about it years ago. And I was like, I think that this is like, even if you lost money on this, like the way you could change the world would be to just take some percentage of your profits, 1%, 2%, and just lose money on fiber forever, because he was really jazzed up about Google Fiber, and then they deprecated that. So I think they were under pressure because of their stock to deprecate all those projects. I think you're right. They now need to go back and say, you know what? Let's do these crazy moonshots again and not look at profitability. Let's look at impact. As an example, Google's Nevada data center is going to be powered by, I'm reading a headline from 2020, $1 billion solar farm. And I think that they are building now the largest solar farms in the world. Like Google might be the largest solar, the largest funder of solar in the world now. Mm-hmm. They are just going for it. So
yeah, they're legitimately net zero, not net zero with offsets. Like they actually do fund so much solar that estimates say it would take, to answer some of the skeptical noties who don't think that the climate crisis needs more money. First of all, somebody did a study about nuclear fusion 10 years ago or so and determined that it would, they were like, okay, if we put $9 billion a year toward fusion, we would have fusion in 10 years, and then backed it out to, as we reduce that investment, how long will it take? And they were like, oh, the world currently invests about $1 billion a year in fusion, which is a fusion never plant. It means we'll always goof around.
They're getting there on fusion, though. It seems like they've made. I'm seeing more investment in fusion and a little more progress.
Absolutely. You know why? Because of that first part. We're seeing more investment. So there was one estimate that said it'll take $4.5 trillion of investment to decarbonize the energy supply in the United States. What if Google said to X, figure out microgrids, figure out power decentralization, full stop, clean energy infrastructure. You've got $3 billion. Go. You will definitely make money, but you reduce the current much more ruthless approach that X has taken over the last few years. I'm just saying, they have the money. So do it.
Yeah. And, finding places to put these solar farms now is becoming part of the issue, right? So by airports, by nuclear power plants in the desert, around data centers that are in the desert. I think we're starting to figure out, with the solar stuff, the panels are so cheap. There's nuclear power plants around. There's nuclear power plant sites that have been kind of semi-approved, even though they're not building on them. Just build around them. This was, I think, Elon's idea. He tweeted it at some point, well, if nobody wants to live near a nuclear power plant, put the solar there because you already got the grid going there.
Right.
All the grid cables are going there. So I think Google should, if they want to really be less hated because they have all this heat coming from regulators, just solve climate change. This is my message our message to Google. I think
solve climate change. Dear Google, you're printing money.
Solve
climate change.
What a legacy for Google to literally just start building solar farms. What if Google said to people, what if Google did what Solar City was doing originally, and they said, hey, we'll put fiber to your house and we'll put the solar on it, and we'll partner with Tesla to put power walls and Tesla solar on there, and we'll fund it. We'll do the bonds, right? That could be actually something really cool if they just took all this cash and said all of our cash is going to go towards solar bonds. We'll put the money up to buy the solar panels. Yep. Just go for it, Google.
If anybody, solar is in so many ways one of the magical bullets for the energy transition, but we need more efficient panels, right? Or Google, go crazy on battery tech. Get us the better battery. It can be solved. It really, in so many ways.
A lot of it's will. And then will is related to capital. So the people with the capital have to have the will.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. If you have a money printing machine like Apple and Google, and Amazon now is starting to have a money printing machine, and you're hated, I look at this as the ultimate PR hack. If all these young people realize you're doing more to save the planet than the government, and the government is moving slow and fighting with each other and yada, yada, and, toxic.
Yep.
But capitalists are actually just doing it.
Totally.
That to me is when capitalism becomes beautiful, right? And I'm obviously a capitalist. I'm pro-capitalism, a chosen career, capital allocator. This is where I think capitalists can reflect deeply about wealth disparity and say, okay, we won. Google won. To a level that's, okay, you could either say obscene or you could say unprecedented, however you want to frame it. But the reframing could be, you know what? We realize this is an insane amount of wealth. And with that great wealth comes great responsibility. And that responsibility we have chosen is to go build solar farms and invest in solar panels and the grid, etc.
And on top of that, to be honest, it doesn't even have to be a do-gooder move, right? Like the total addressable market for climate solutions is the whole freaking planet, for one thing, but also the risk, like the only existential risk these companies probably face at this point, and literally Facebook is seeing the water come closer to the door every day, is climate change. Emily Kirsch told us on the episode on Sunday that like there are predictions that we will lose 15% of global GDP by 2050. That's not grandparent territory.
And what if there's less people?
Right?
Like, what if people decide to have less kids? And that would be a shame. And like then you have less customers. This idea that like rich people want to see populations decline is like that's not in a company's best interest. Like growth comes from more consumers. So
yeah.
And they did the 20-to-1 stock split. Like I never understood why stock splits make the stocks go up because nothing has changed except the psychology. It's
but broker people can buy more though.
Yeah, but you can buy fractional shares now. So
yeah, that's true.
So if you had a $20 bill in your hand,
only on Robinhood, can't buy fractional shares everywhere.
Okay, well, you can buy fractional shares on Robinhood, and I think some of the other services do it. But if I gave you,
but yeah,
is it not that common?
I don't think so. Although my kid has a little account and he buys fractional shares, he's very proud of his portfolio.
The next generation can do it.
I know.
But I mean, if you have a $20 bill in your hand and I replace it with 20 singles, and you're like, wow, it weighs more, and there's more of them, and I can fan them out. It's still the same amount. I don't get it.
I think affordability, I mean, just as a matter of psychology, affordability matters. Like, oh, if this is cheaper now, I'm gonna snap up some more of it.
Yeah. Okay, sure. But it became 10% more expensive on that news. Yeah. But I guess CNBC was speculating that Google stock split might be them angling to get added to the Dow Jones Industrial Index.
Wow.
I don't even know what the qualification is to be on the Dow Jones, but okay.
And why would I wonder why they would want to be in the Dow versus the NASDAQ? They just don't want to be considered a tech company anymore because reputation? I don't really know.
I think it's a status thing, or maybe it means you're more blue chip, so people could feel more comfortable holding you.
Maybe
holding the shares if you were like some big endowment or something. But IBM is, I guess, a candidate to be removed from the Dow in favor of Google Alphabet.
I mean, ouch, but kind of though, yeah. So if Google were to be added and IBM removed, according to our notes here, that would technically shift the sector weightings of the Dow. That could mean a longer evaluation process for the Dow committee, partly because the big obstacle for Google is that the Dow considers it a communications services company.
What does that even mean? I mean, they're not making cell phones, or they're not Verizon. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, is it now like, I just picture like the people who are on this board are like, the people in Brewster's Millions who
it reminds me of the Oscars committee.
It is like the Oscars committee, or like the Golden Globes. What is that? The Foreign Press?
Yeah, the Hollywood Foreign Press.
The Hollywood Foreign Press is just extraordinary. They're like, we have no diversity. And they're like, okay, well, we're not going to air the Golden Globes unless you change this in the next year or two. And then they're like, yeah, we still don't have any black people in the Hollywood Foreign Press. And you're like, what? How is that possible? Is that true? I saw that headline.
You got to be trying, because you're trying.
It's like you're either trying to not do it or you're not trying at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway.
If we keep on this route, I'm going to talk about the NFL. I do think it's interesting that tech only makes up 22.2% of the Dow right now, whereas communications services makes up only 3.7% of the Dow, which is the third smallest. The last tech company to join the Dow index was Apple back in 2015.
All right. Who cares? I mean, this whole like designation means nothing.
Those
to me. The fact is, I just look at IBM growing 4% and Google growing 41%, and
I guess it matters.
Billion versus 257 billion. It's like, okay.
I suppose it matters to investors who buy indexes. So if you buy the Dow Jones Industrial Average, then presumably you would want a company like Google in there.
Yeah. I mean, Google is 5 times IBM's revenue.
Yeah.
With 10x its growth rate.
I was about to say that. I was going to let Molly say that. See, I'm in the same line of the document as you, Nick.
You have a mind meld, and I was thinking about poor IBM.
The fact that IBM is still around and doing 57 billion is extraordinary. I mean, when was IBM founded? In the 50s? I should know that off the top of my head.
Oh, IBM before that, right? Because IBM was pretty instrumental in, I think, some wartime tech, if I am remembering correctly.
1911?
Yeah.
It really is that old?
IBM, I think, is betting the farm right now on quantum, and they're just hoping that they get there soon enough to stay alive.
Yeah, wow, 1911.
Yeah.
Who knew?
All right, what do we think? Do we have time for a story time with Jason? I mean, we did tease this yesterday.
Yeah, we got to do it real quick.
We got to do it.
Let's whip
All right, so if you missed yesterday's show, here's the quick setup, which was that way back, it was the night before iPad announcement, January 26, 2010, which was, God help me, 12 years ago now. And Jason trolled everyone on Twitter by tweeting out fake specs about the iPad, and it resurfaced yesterday after 2 days ago, after Octane AI CEO Matt Schlicht tweeted about his involvement in the troll. J. Cal, remind us, first of all, like, for those who were not there, because now, sure, Apple announcements are a big deal and everybody tweets about them for one day, but they're, it's sort of like a little Groundhog's Day. Oh, no pun intended, because I think today's Groundhog's Day. Yeah. But it's like, it's the same thing over and over. But back then, an Apple announcement was like,
it was a big deal.
Shut it down.
Well, this was Steve Jobs, and you got to remember, there was Steve Jobs' previous announcement was, here's the iPhone. So the amount of energy, the world was watching this. This was a big deal. This is when tech in 2010 had kind of crossed over into pop culture.
Yeah. And iPad did not exist.
The iPad did not exist.
Yeah.
And there was massive speculation, and developers were developing for it. So it was like the worst kept secret in Silicon Valley. And some people had been playing with it for, I think Walt Mossberg had said he had it for a month or something.
Yeah.
And then developers had been able to go to Apple, from my understanding, go to a room and put their software onto an iPad, test it, and then leave the room. But they had to write their software on their, Macs, and then, look at it on their desktop. And then they wanted to actually test it on the hardware. They had to go there and have somebody over their shoulder, et cetera. So, and the Steve Jobs was, quite the showman. So I was in bed, and Twitter wasn't that old. This podcast, I think, was a year old because we had started in May of 2009.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of unknown. Although I think I did have 90,000 followers or 100,000 followers on Twitter.
I mean, I feel like another important piece of context here is the way that, like you just described, Apple did play favorites. And that did start to irk a little bit. So I could imagine 2010 J. Cal being in bed like, oh, I didn't get to go to the secret room and play with this for a month. So how about this?
There was a little bit about that because obviously I co-founded Engadget with Brian Alvey and Peter Rojas and Ryan Block, yada, yada. And, during that time period, we weren't insiders, but Steve Jobs was aware of us. And, we were in the room for these kind of keynotes. But I had sold it at that point. And so I was sitting in bed. I was using Twitter. My daughter was probably 2 or 3 months old at the time. Yeah. And 2 months old at the time. And I just decided to pretend I had one. And I thought it would be funny. Now you got to remember, Twitter was a chat room back then. It wasn't Twitter today. There were no blue check marks. It was just a bunch of people goofing off. And at one point I was the number 3 user on Twitter. It was Scoble, the Senator Obama. Was he a senator before he became president? When he was he was like Senator Obama and then me, like literally 30,000, 20,000, 15,000 followers kind of situation. Very nascent. And so I started describing the tablet, and I'm like, oh, it's got a built-in HD tuner and a DVR. And it's amazing for newspapers, and video conferencing is super stable, but nothing new. And it's got 2 cameras, one on the front and the back. The idea that it would have 2 cameras was crazy. It didn't get launched with cameras. And I was like, oh, it's got thumb pads on each side for mouse gestures and fingerprint security. This is long before they had Touch ID. Mm-hmm. But I had heard about a company in Israel that was doing it. So I just sort of added that. And I was like, yeah, and it's like basically like a Nintendo Wii level innovation, and Farmville's insane. Because my friend was doing Farmville at the time, Mark Pincus. And I was like, you can connect the tablets, and it makes like a Wi-Fi network for gaming. And, I just was just crazy. But then I was like,
designing a perfect product, really.
And I was like, oh yeah, and by the way, the back is a solar panel and recharging, but it doesn't really work that quickly. And I just literally described something that was absolutely physically not possible. And then I decided I'm going to go to bed. And people are telling me like, you're full of it. No way. And of course, some people are like, maybe, but overwhelmingly the people on Twitter were like, this is not true. And I say, before I go to bed, I say to my wife,
this is my favorite part, is that's all happening. And J. Cal's like,
So I said to my wife, like, yeah, I'll go to bed. And she's like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, Mark Pincus is going to be upset. Like, you probably shouldn't do that to Mark because we're good friends. And I said, I'm not joking. And the specs are real. We'll find out in a few hours. Because everybody was up late speculating. So I sleep in. I get up the next morning. My phone is melting with text messages and phone calls. I mean, I'm talking 100 phone calls. Hi, it's CNN. Hi, it's Wall Street Journal. Hi, it's the New York Times. Hey, Jake, Cal, it's this person. And while I'm looking at my phone, it rings. It's Pincus. And it's like, he's called me 10 times. And Wall Street, everybody, what had happened was everybody
picked it up. Of course.
All the journalists picked it up. And then they all took their stories down because they felt so stupid. And then I got lauded for like showing how little ethics the tech press had, that they just ran with the story. And to be totally honest, people needed a story and they wanted the page views at that time. People were page view crazy. So they were like, I think a lot of people in tech wrote the story because they wanted the page views. And it was a clickbaity story, even though they knew I didn't have it.
Maybe. I mean, you did run a site that
was the number one gadget site.
Was the number one gadget site and got a lot of early scoops. And, was known to run with those scoops and sort of fix it later. Like you did really sort of pioneer that model. And so I'm sure that at least, I'm sure those people publish thinking there's a 50% chance that this is true. If it's true, we can't miss it. And also, yes, I mean, I think this is around the time somebody asked me once, like, what my ideal CNET headline would be. Because for a very brief time, I was like the front door programmer. And I was like, oh, yeah, free naked iPod.
Yeah.
Like free.
Speaking of free iPods.
Anything Apple. Like
yes, plus
anything naked. Apple. Anyway, so yes, obviously everybody went ape doodle over this. And
it was crazy.
Goes to bed. And then the best part is this update that's still up on the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
There it is. Social games publisher Zynga tells Silicon Alley Insider that, contrary to Mr. Calacanis' tweet, Zynga CEO Mark Pincus won't be appearing at the Apple launch. Now think about whether the iPad that he has invented.
I had said Pincus is going to kick off the thing with Jobs and do this. And Pincus is like, dude, I'm trying to negotiate that exact thing. So then I was like, all right, well, I got to get some, I got to get some more out of this. So I basically then gave away like 10 iPads for free. And I actually we did give those iPads away for free. We did a contest because I happened to own the Twitter handle contests and I was trying to get followers for it. Yeah, it was pretty good. I had taken down my entire Twitter archive at one point because it was just so crazy. And like, I was just like, let me just archive this thing so I don't get canceled because I don't know what debates I've had on here. So my tweets aren't up there anymore, but I do have the archive so I can pull them up. But there was no retweet function back then. So some of the tweets still exist because people have RT and then what I had. Yeah, a bunch of people.
Remember when we used to type RT? Aww.
Yeah, cut and paste it. Yeah.
My favorite part though is just like the time machine of outrage. Looking at this last tweet from Jared Earl saying, I have a different read on Jason. Jason may be laughing, but he's spent what little credibility he had.
Fair.
It's so sad that ended your entire career and influence, Jason.
I say to Jared, fair.
That one little stunt.
Jemima Kiss, who I've known for a long time, I got to have breakfast with her one time when I was, or maybe she interviewed me or something when I was in the UK. She's just a great journalist.
She got
The Guardian. And she was like, you forgot the snack dispenser and the teleporter. Like, she got it immediately.
She understood the assignment.
She understood the assignment.
Because really, it also was easily read, and still is, as a send-up of the absolutely absurd speculation and hype around every single Apple announcement. I mean, you cannot believe how many...
That was what I was doing.
How much ink was spilled over, like, what is it going to be and what is it going to have? And oh my God, we got to get all the clicks from talking about what the... I mean, it was beautiful satire.
Yes.
It was all
satire for me. It was, for me, all satire.
And this has been Storytime with Jason.
There it is, Storytime. We can go into other crazy moments in my career, but that was because there are people literally who now have venture capital funds who were in 7th grade when that happened. And they now have venture capital funds and I'm co-investing alongside them.
Amazing.
Hey guys, Rachel reporting here. On February 14th and 15th, we'll be hosting Founder University Intensive. This is a 2-day program for founders. Now, this course is only open to women founders.
We'll be hosting a course open to everyone on May 9th and 10th. You can apply for both at founder.university.
And applications for the longer 12-week Founder University program are due on February 14th, and you can also apply for those at founder.university.
Follow Jason and Molly on Twitter @Jason and @MollyWood.
If you're not a boomer and prefer TikTok, search for This Week in Startups to find the fan account @this_week_in_startups.
And our official account @TWI Startups, but honestly, the fan account is way better than ours.
And if you're still not tired of hearing from Jason 6 days a week,
you can hear him read his book Angel at angelthebook.com/audible.